Descent of the Demon God. By Hanjo Wiolia. Chapter 154. Auction House on Board. Part 1. There was a dark space in virtual reality, with nothing but chairs. 10 people wearing masks were seated, with the letters from the alphabet written on the forehead of their masks, from A to J. The person wearing the mask with the letter D looked at I and asked, "Did we have to be that irrational with our request?" Right now, the Yongchen group is very popular, and there are quite a few people who consider them as heroes. G furthered the point that I was making. He has a point. Since the TRA crisis was resolved in no time, their influence increased. If this is their asset, then they are very valuable. A picture of Chen Youwen floated in the middle. E, who was watching it, asked, "What do we do if things don't go our way?" We have a huge number of VIP guests attending this auction. No one wanted to mistreat any VIP guests, as each of them had enormous wealth. At that, C laughed. Wahahaha. Are you laughing right now? Your jokes are too much. Jokes? Do you think the VIPs are there because of their wealth? Worrying about them is ridiculous. B, who was next to him, spoke. You are speaking as if you don't know. It is because a mess turns bigger if those rich VIPs go wild. The air around became tense, as despite being in the same group, they were competitive. As a result, each of the members kept the others in check. Haha, is this going to happen again? I heard that more than 30% of our original traders changed. F, who seemed to be a woman, changed the topic. The change of more than 30% of the original traders meant that the invitations had been transferred. I nodded in reply. Among those, we have Kahaku of Speed, God of Killing Amuchai, and Holy Sword Jack Oren. Japan, Thailand, and England, they haven't come out till now. They have begun to move at last. B seemed interested. The people who were mentioned were the strongest in their respective nations. Is it because of that? Has to be. Such people wanted to participate in the highlight of the auction. Thanks to that, we will have quite an entertainment. Most of them in masks agreed to it, but D-Mask mumbled. If only the problem were resolved, I would have gone and watched it in person. Watch the live broadcast then. TCH. As if I have a choice. Thanks to the change in topic by F, the atmosphere changed. People began to leave the virtual meeting until A and I were the last two remaining. I will now disconnect to prepare for the auction. Wait. A, who hadn't said a word since then, spoke. It wasn't an annoying voice, but it was strangely harsh. Chick. As soon as he said that, the virtual space changed. The scene was blocked from the eyes of the other masks, and only some of the masks could hear. Take care of Chen Musong at the auction house. Huh? I couldn't hide his confusion. They were intending to make him a VIP, so he couldn't understand his orders. But as a result of the data calculated, the probability of him rejecting our offer is over 98.3%. He will not come outside. Didn't we think of a reason and decide to bring him to our side using the gift and the VVIP card to avoid that? The decision had already been made. However, there was a piece of information meant for only one mask. Among the 10, there is a leaker. Huh? Did you think that the change in the original guests was normal? Then, you think we have a leaker? I's voice became heavy. This wasn't an easy task. A lot of VIPs and VIP guests were being handled by that mask and will even try to contact this man, Chen Musong. We don't know who the leaker is? It has to be one of the masks participating in the entertainment. At that, I's eyes trembled. There were 3 people at the table, including him, who decided to participate in the entertainment, meaning he too was under suspicion. Am I under suspicion too? Do you want to prove your loyalty? Get Chen Musong and get rid of him. He had no choice but to do it to avoid suspicion and follow his leader's words. I understand. 7 p.m. Numerous sedans were lined up in front of the hotel. All the auction participants with invitations came down and waited in the lobby, and once their name was called out, they would get into the sedan. So the auction isn't here. Chun Yo-won nodded at Bai Mak-hyen's words. That was why they said to hand over the VIP invitation to the driver. Then it seems like the auction house is split in two. Shall we do as discussed before? There were two types of invitations. General and VIP 1. Ah. Hu Bong had a sad expression. It was because in the event of two auctions, he would enter the general one with Bai Mak-hyen and him so high to find traces of Baekgi. This was because only him and Chun Yo-won knew how Baekgi looked. Guessed Amuchai. When someone called out the name, the people in the lobby gasped. Amuchai? Chun Yo-won looked at the person being called. He heard this name in the most recent ghost that he made. A sharp-looking Thai man with brown skin and blue hair appeared. God of Killing. Bai Mak-hyen seemed shocked. I didn't even think that he would come here. In Thailand, he is called the God of Killing. He is the apex and unrivaled. God of Killing, Amuchai. A monster so strong that he had no enemies within his nation. Ark Yang and Hu Bong asked. Huh? Mak-hyen, is he that strong? They couldn't find anything special about him. In fact, it was difficult to read others since the kinds of martial arts were different for each nation. Step. Amuchai, who was called, passed by and stared at Chun Yo-won. He heard that Merson had died at the hands of Chun Yo-won. However, he couldn't take revenge on him. Cowardly bastard. The East Asia Union received Chun Yo-won's message from Tuan, who returned alive. He wanted all the agents who infiltrated the auction house to refrain from causing friction with Chun Yo-won. Amuchai couldn't understand the reason, but he decided that the moment the mission was done, he would kill Chun Yo-won with his own hands. Guessed Chun Musong. Before long, his name was called. Hu Bong. If there is a problem, let me know right away. Yes, my lord. Chun Yo-won's party, which was divided into two, moved. The sedan drove on the overpass for about 30 minutes and arrived at a port. Huh? Huh? The smell of the sea wafted after a while. The fox in Chun Yo-won's hand poked its head out. The unique scent of the sea made it feel good. She felt like growling. This isn't even a cat, what is this thing doing? Come to think of it, I had never been to the sea with your ancestor. The golden fox looked at the sea with shimmering eyes, thinking of the past. The lights around the place made the sea shine. Just looking at the view was enjoyable. This is my first time here, teacher. Surprisingly, it was Ark Young's first time too. He had never been to any body of water before because he had always stayed in the Kunlun Mountains. This way. Since there were numerous ships in the port, the driver and an attendant in the front seat guided them on a speedboat. The speedboat was very fast. It isn't here? Ah. The auction house is over there. The attendant pointed to a small and sparkling thing over the sea. It was far enough to make it tough for humans to see. Zoomed-in night vision mode activated. With the various functions in Nano, Chun Yo-won could see the huge ship floating in the middle of the ocean. The auction was being held on a ship. I can't attack or act out. Chun Yo-won thought about it, deciding that it didn't mean much. The speedboat carrying the VIPs quickly crossed over and headed to the auction house on the ship. When viewed from a distance, its size looked normal, but up close, it was huge, like a ship made by weaving together several ships. Gorgeous. It wasn't an exaggeration to say it looked like there was a Las Vegas on the ship, as there were lights all around and the splendid decoration. Weak. As the auction was being held in the evening, the chefs were cooking in the open kitchen and the food was being served at a buffet. It seemed more like a festival. And then came an announcement. VIP guests on the last speedboat, please come to the central dome where the auction is being held. The center of the ship was crafted with an open ceiling. Upon entering, there were designated seats, and in the center was a wide pedestal that rose about 2 meters high. As the last people entered and took their seats, a man in a purple suit and purple mask walked up. The man grabbed the mic and spoke. First of all, we would like to welcome all the VIP guests who have come here to the auction, which has resumed after a year. The man in the mask seemed to be in charge of this auction. Chen Yuan gave Nano an order. Nano, analyze the voice. Chen Yuan wanted to compare the person who appeared in the recorded video with an altered voice and this man to see if the people were the same. The result from analyzing the tone and intonation pattern of the voice is negative. They weren't the same person, as there was no way that the same man would come here. However, someone sat in the seat ahead of Chen Yuan and started talking to him after turning his head a little. You are the vice chairman of Yongchun, right? He was a man in his 40s, with a bald head and a wide smile. He reached out for a handshake. I wanted to see you at least once, as it is such an honor. Chen Yuan ignored the hand. The bald man lowered his hand, sighed, and talked again. Perhaps I greeted you too openly? First time here? At the auction, I mean. I think it will be the third time for me. Despite being ignored, the man continued to talk. Ark Young wasn't his assistant, but he took the role and asked. Do you have some business, sir? At that, the bald man waved his hand. Hey, nothing like that. I was just trying to get acquainted with the vice chairman of the Yongchun group, who seems to be running a lot of things these days. Just wanted to form a relationship. There were a lot of people who had been doing this lately to Chen Yuan, all because of his rise in fame. If it's fine with you, let's have a drink and talk during the break. Just as he was about to ask Chen Yuan, the bald man stopped at what he heard the host say. Prior to the full-scale auction, this time, I would like to take some time and boost the excitement. Those of you who know me might know what I am saying. What? The eyes of the bald man became sharp. He lost the smile he was trying to put on and turned his hand away. I need to go away for a while. I will see you again later. With that, he tried to walk downstairs. Chen Yuan, who had no interest in him, became suspicious of his last movements, and said to Ark Young. Ark Young, can you follow him and find out who he is contacting? Yes, teacher. Ark Young's level would easily allow him to follow the man. As the bald man made his way towards the east exit of the dome, Ark Young trailed shortly behind. He didn't even have to use light steps, because of the huge music and the noise around. Damn it. What are they planning, putting the last thing first? The bald man kept muttering and headed somewhere. To the right of the exit at the east side was a hallway leading to a bathroom which he might enter. I need to keep my distance now. Because there were fewer people in here, Ark Young decided to stay a little farther away. So he proceeded slowly as the bald man passed by the bathroom and entered the warehouse with a sign saying "No entry." Ark Young was confused, because there were security guards, who seemed strong, guarding in front of that warehouse. Taking them down wasn't a problem, but it would create a mess with the CCTVs overflowing in this place. However, he was able to learn one thing. That man is involved in this. Otherwise, there was no way he could freely enter this warehouse that was clearly saying "No entry." Meanwhile, he heard the cheers from the crowd in the dome. Whoa! People cheered because of the performance on the podium. An iron bar, made of special alloy, was cut. See that? Watch the cutting of this special alloy rod. Swish! Something black was spinning in the air above the podium. And then it stopped in front of the man in a black uniform on the podium. It was a wheel weapon made of black iron. This is a weapon that we found in an old temple in the Yunnan province. The Ryan, or wheel, floated in the air, but what was even more shocking was that this man in black wasn't a warrior. This mysterious weapon moves according to its owner's thoughts. The man here is an ordinary person who never learned martial arts, but the sharpness of this weapon allows him to cut down any metal or alloy. Wow! People shouted and applauded. Several people looked at it with greed in their eyes, while the masked host continued. This wheel is being auctioned for an A-class core. Anyone can become the owner of this wheel once the A-class core is paid. Yusowa clicked her tongue at it. Although the weapon was strange, it was ridiculous to pay an A-class core for it. This was literally an entertainment show. Who would go up and give an A-class core for such a thing and risk their life? Yusowa's eyes widened. The vice chairman. Was it Chen Yowen who was walking up on the podium? Chapter 155. Auction House on Board. Part 2. Chen Yowen wasn't interested in the auction at first. However, he changed his mind after seeing the weapon that was shown, and it wasn't the mysterious ability of the weapon he was interested in. To see this thing here. The weapon was called Wheel. It was none other than a weapon from Hagar's blueprint of the armor suit. If his memory was correct, this wheel would turn into a helmet. This is what I want. He knew what an auction was and had to have the wheel in his possession. Whoa! The people who saw him walk up the podium cheered. The vice chairman of Yongchun Group, who recently gained a large name for himself, seemed to be interested in something. Isn't he the best in Murim? I heard that the 5 great warriors are no match to him. Their evaluation of his strength happened after the TRA incident, the biggest crisis of China. At that time, rumors spread that one of the 5 great warriors couldn't move against him in fear. Is he the best? Eris der Barum test. It is said he is the best. The participants of other nations were interested in him too. Since most of them were participants in MS groups, they were all related to arms, so keeping an eye out was natural. The observation room on the top floor of the dome. There was a man in a dark suit looking at the podium, as smoke filled the room from the cigar he was biting. Suddenly, someone came in by slamming the door. Bang! No, Chai Muntak. The bald man who had approached Chen Yowen suddenly arrived. The man with the cigar turned his body around at the mention of his name. Chai Muntak's eyes were very distinct. The right eye was blue and the left was red. During work time, you're supposed to use my code name, Jay. At Chai Muntak's words, the bald man, named Jay, spoke. Is the code name the problem now? Why did you start with the entertainment? Is that the problem? The entertainment game is always supposed to be at the end, so why'd you change it suddenly? Be quiet. Tack. When Chai Muntak snapped his finger, all the attendants inside the room went out. Jay walked towards him. What are you planning? Our leader noticed it. What? Jay's face turned hard at that. Noticed it? What does that mean? As I said, our leader found out that we had been working behind the scenes. The truth was revealed, there wasn't just one defector. Among the group, there was Jay, the bald man, and Chai Muntak, whose codename was I. So, you changed the order so that the entertainment game would come first? If the show became overheated, an accident could occur, so it was usually placed last. And the leader asked us to get rid of Chun Musong. Chun Musong? What? They were planning to form a relationship with Chun Musong. Knowing that things went wrong, Jay's complexion darkened. So you pushed the entertainment game forward? But how could a person with that level of fame participate in this show? Jay unintentionally looked through the window and was shocked. He saw Chen Yowen step up. Wheel? Isn't that something that would never come before the main event? Originally, it was a weapon priced at an S-rank core. Since it was something that any Murim would want, they never dreamed of putting it up before the main event. Didn't he come up? Are you thinking of using him for the entertainment game? We need to use such items for the monsters in each nation to move. More than half of the VIP people were not just wealthy, but strong as well. It was no exaggeration to say that this place was full of superhumans. In particular, there were 6 strong people here who were known to be the strongest in their nations, so he knew that everyone would be vigilant. But that doesn't mean they will come. No. Come what? Ah. Chai Muntak couldn't help but be shocked when another person climbed on the podium. Finally, the first contenders of the entertainment game have been decided. They are Chun Musong, the vice-chairman of Yongchun Group, and Jukwat Amuchayev. Thailand. Jukwat Amuchai was nicknamed the God of Killing. Among the people there, he was thought to be the strongest. There was a moment of silence before cheers erupted among the others. Wow! The appearance of this monster, who was known to never have come down from the top position in Thailand for 24 years. Crazy! He's finally up. Will we see his strength? The strongest man in China versus the strongest man in Thailand? Everyone was excited. It was no longer just a game of entertainment. One couldn't watch this game even if they paid billions. Unfortunate. We could have made money out of this. Chai Muntak put on a sad expression. This was an event they could have been paid enormously for if the broadcasting was sold on the black market. Jay raised his brows. One of them will die. Chai Muntak nodded in agreement. The best scenario would be for Chen Youan to die. Of course, even if Chen Youan won, he would have to keep dealing with other contenders who wanted the weapon, building up his exhaustion. I am lucky. A bearded man with his arms crossed, a blue hoodie, and sunglasses welcomed the situation. He was Kahaku of Speed from Japan. It would be a lie to say that he didn't want the wheel. We shook hands, Amuchai. Not just Kahaku, but everyone in the place was watching it. This game was increasingly difficult for those who fought for the weapon earlier. Tak. A man with a red coat, blonde hair, and a golden scabbard adorned with a splendid British royal pattern was also happy about it. The person considered the strongest has appeared first. He was Holy Sword Jack Orrin of England. Although Chen Youan was the hottest topic these days, Amuchai had a reputation that preceded Chinese martial arts. The audience all hoped that Chen Youan would die and Amuchai would be drained of strength at the end of the game.
ฉันรออยู่
I've been waiting for this moment. Amuchai looked at Chen Youan, not believing that such a chance would come soon. Weapons were meaningless to Amuchai because he pursued martial arts using only his bare hands. All he wanted was revenge for his colleagues Merson and Saikun. Let the entertainment game begin. As soon as the masked man finished talking, a sound was played. Ping. A strong energy formed at the edge of the podium and a barrier of membrane surrounding the podium came up. Oh. Looks like a barrier. The people sitting were amazed at it. They realized that MS Group's technological prowess was higher than that of others, and that this barrier was made to prevent the aftermath of the battle from reaching the others.
เหมือนของเล่น
This is just a toy. Amuchai looked at the barrier surrounding him, and felt that he could break it with a little effort. The barrier is designed to withstand the attacks of an A-class alpha entity, so feel free to go all out. Huh. Indeed I will. Amuchai kicked the barrier, and at that moment, a great wind pressure arose. Pang! Bang! When the strong wind pressure that ripped even the air was sent, the entire ship shook. Grr! Oh! The ship is shaking. The crowd exclaimed at rumbling. However, what was more surprising was that the barrier was still intact. Because they were on a ship, The force couldn't be absorbed entirely, but it was still greatly effective. I think it'll be fine to use my full power. Amuchai felt relieved at the thought. He was worried that the ship would break, but seeing the barrier work well, he could do his best. Amazing. Ark Young, who came after following the man called Jay, couldn't help but be shocked at Amuchai's kick. Without internal energy, it's still that strong. It was just a basic kick with that much power. He couldn't imagine what level would be reached if the man showed his true power. Amuchai glared at Chen Yuan, who was relaxed.
ฉันจะฆ่าคุณ
I'm going to kill you. Chen Yuan asked Nano to transfer the language to him. Transfer of Thai has been completed. BRRR. With a trembling feeling in his mind, Chen Yuan managed to understand it. And use it too. Kill, funny. When Chen Yuan was able to fluently speak in Thai, Amuchai was shocked. You speak my tongue. If you knew anything, then you would have heeded to the warning of the East Asia Union. Warning? Ha ha ha. At those words, Amuchai laughed. Who is warning whom? Today you will cross the river of hell. Amuchai made a gesture of slitting the throat with thumb. You may think you are the most famous one here, but the world is wide, man. And you are a frog in a well, who knows nothing of the sea. Pang. Amuchai took his pose. The posture with which he raised his knees was similar to Muay Thai, but not entirely identical. I'll show you the power of Canter. Common Muay Thai was strong, but not as strong compared to this new derivative. While Muay Thai crushes the bones and flesh, Canter destroys mountains and seas. Ha! Fat. Amuchai raised his knee, and at that moment, a great amount of energy rose from the floor. Pang! A rippling wind pressure engulfed the entire podium and swept upwards from the bottom. When the wind pressure hit the barrier, it felt like a storm inside. It has to be that. He is indeed Amuchai. The strong people watched as if it was natural. They knew he was strong, but it was their first time seeing this technique. Even Ark Young was shocked. It's like watching the void technique. Amuchai's kicks were similar to the Ark family technique that used the unification of energy, and Amuchai was a man who was absolutely strong enough to have kicks at that level. Kahaku clicked his tongue and shook his head. I was hoping to see Amuchai exhausted, but is this already the end? Kahaku's eyes, which thought the match was done, widened. His vision was blurred with the pressure inside, and saw an unbelievable sight. As the wind subsided, everyone saw it. Pack. Amuchai, who was alive, seemed to be struggling, especially with Chen Yuan holding his face tightly. No way. What happened inside? It was their first time seeing Amuchai being held like this helplessly. The monster called the god of killing couldn't move. What is he? Amuchai was confident enough to even win over an S-class entity alone. However, the moment the kick was released, Chen Yuan moved like lightning and cut off his leg. Drip. The floor on the podium was filled with blood. Chen Yuan looked at the man in his hands and said, I definitely warned you all. Yoop. If you bother me one more time, I will kill you all. Creepy. Amuchai tried to kick Chen Yuan with his other leg, but felt a strange sensation upon impact. Pack. The kick hit Chen Yuan's head, and a fan-shaped wind pressure then formed in the direction of the kick and the podium was devastated. It was a kick that could break the mountains. Yes. He tried to shake off the hand holding him. Crack. Quiet. Chen Yuan's fingers dug into his face. In the midst of the pain, Amuchai's two eyes shook. Chen Yuan's head was intact despite the powerful kick, as if it hadn't even hit him. Crack. This man survived this attack? Chen Yuan spoke to Amuchai, who was shocked. That was nothing. After undergoing 5 body reconstructions, Chen Yuan's body had surpassed the realm of human beings. A monster. For the first time, Amuchai felt fear. For ignoring the warning, you need to be punished. You foolish Tai. Yoop. Amuchai was desperately trying to speak. If only he listened to the warning, things would have been fine, but... You are too late. Crack. Quack. Chen Yuan tore off Amuchai's face, and most people who witnessed it turned their heads away. Brrr. Amuchai's body, once the face was torn off, went limp. Chen Yuan threw the body on the floor. The dome that was moments before filled with noise had turned silent. Chai Mun Tak, known as I, and Jay, were shocked. Amuchai was killed that easily? One of the world's strongest men had died in vain. Everyone watching had expected a fierce battle, so the entire fight was nothing like they had expected. This is too bothersome. Come at once. Chapter 156. Auction House on Board. Part 3. This is too bothersome. Come at once. They were arrogant words. Many of the people gathered were world-famous warriors. Telling them to come out was attacking their pride, but... Oh ho! No one is coming out. Look at that. As the host said, the dome was silent, as if succumbing to Chen Yuan's seemingly crazy attitude. The game of the entertainment game had been decided, so the host nodded his head, looked at the observation room that was instructing him, and spoke again. Are the companions of Mr. Amuchai fine with the outcome? There were 2 Thais and a few other Asians seated in the third row, and they were all members of the East Asia Union and masters of counter martial arts. The host was trying to instigate the anger of those who came along with Amuchai. But it didn't end there. Are the rest of the VIPs also yielding to Vice Chairman Chen Musong? At those words, the faces of the powerful men who couldn't respond to Chen Yuan's words became distorted. Everyone saw what had happened. Amateur, the strongest among them, had died in vain, so it was obvious that they would be hesitant to come out. Is that host deliberately doing this? Even though he was the host, his behavior seemed a little strange. Yet, the provocations worked. Crack. Someone got up and kicked the ground. He was a young Thai about 190 centimeters tall and in his mid-30s. Stop it. Didn't you see our master suffer? I need to take revenge for him. Ugh. The counter martial arts masters tried to stop Amuchai's disciple, but gave up knowing that he wouldn't listen. Pat. Conchosu. Conchosu moved towards the podium and tried to hit the back of Chen Yuan's exposed back. Master's enemy. Although he wanted to take revenge, he knew that this man was stronger than him, meaning he would have to strike him from the back. See splitting technique. It was a technique that gathered energy at the feet and pushed it out, having enough power to split the sea. Die. Shoo. With Chen Yuan's back exposed, Conchosu's form zoomed onto his target. However. Good. Perhaps I should get rid of the entire East Asia Union. Chen Yuan leisurely turned around and moved to the side, using his hand to strike Conchosu's chest. Fat. Quack. In response to the energy penetrating Conchosu's body, he bounced back. Ack. What? 3 of the Thai warriors had to catch him before he hit something, and in doing so were pushed back very far. Move. Others moved, seeing that his companions were unable to stop his movement. Bang! 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 The seats made of marble were crushed, and all 3 of the people who had tried to help the man were coughing up blood. How can he unleash so much energy in such a brief moment? He must also be a master. If it were a simple attack, they wouldn't have suffered so much. The agents of the East Asia Union couldn't hide their anger any longer and decided to fight one by one. They lost a lot of power. The most important role in their current mission was played by Amuchai and the others who survived. However, losing them would mean failure of their mission. Seeing these people move of their own volition, Chen Youan considered them dumb. Chen Musong, you bastard! However, there was no one strong enough to face Chen Youan. Watching the events unfold, the man in the mask gulped and said, "I think we need to stop the game now. It's becoming weird rather than exciting." "No, encourage them more. Didn't he just say that he would deal with all of them at once?" Jay spoke these words, at which the masked man couldn't hide his confusion. As a host, he had to make sure the auction progressed naturally, and causing such a fight would create a bad light for the MS group. There could be opposition from VIPs. It doesn't matter. Follow the orders. The host turned off the earphone and took a deep breath. The man speaking was one of the 10 executives of MS Group, so he couldn't speak back. Vice Chairman Chen Musong made a great suggestion of having a one against all. "How about it? We won't have such a chance again." Whisper. At the host's words, the audience became utter chaos. Everyone knew Chen Youan's strength, which made the VIPs puzzled at this battle being continued. What will happen if I step out? Some people, like Jack Oren and Kahaku, had made up their minds to not participate. Not only did they judge that dealing with Chen Youan would be difficult, but the fact they had to team up with others and the ensuing shame were strikes to their prides. However, not everyone made such a wise choice. Unlike those who practiced martial arts, the people of foreign nations were confident that their techniques couldn't be used by this man, so a group of them appeared. "We will participate." They were the warriors from Australia. All 8 people standing next to each other had abilities equivalent to those of A-class keepers, and the brown man between them was an S-class keeper. They decided to take the chance. What an idiot, trying to make an offer that puts himself at a disadvantage. They all laughed at Chen Youan. No matter how strong he was, if several talented people worked together, his defeat was inevitable. Out of confidence, they shouted at Chen Youan. "You suggested this. No regrets if you end up dying." Tack. The person who appeared to be the leader of this group snapped his finger to send a gesture to the host to start the game. At the signal, the people cheered again. "Show us your martial arts." Phew! What an interesting group of challengers. These guests are guild members of the Black Roaring Guild, who came all the way from Australia with their guild leader Max. As the purple-masked host raised his hand, the barrier went up once more. Whoa! Max and the others waited for the barrier to form completely. They had been in the guild for a long time, so they had the time record of dealing with an S-class entity within 2 hours using their teamwork. Pick. Once the barrier formed completely, Max raised his hand, and 2 of the in-line with fighting abilities tried to use them on Chen Youan. It was then. Quajic. No one understood what happened. Obviously, the people tried to close the gap the moment the barrier formed, but they seemed to have completely disappeared. The only trace of them left was the blood and flesh pieces on the ground they were just on. Acha? Chen Youan had his palm pressed down. Those who learned martial arts were shocked by what he had done. He did that with his internal energy? It was an overwhelming energy that made others feel like they were being hit with a hammer. The Australians who were trying to attack Chen Youan were instantly flattened to death. Chen Youan hadn't thought of sparing anyone since this was a battle to the death. M.O. Monster, he's a monster. Everyone in the audience felt like their life was being sucked out as they stared at the hand that tore off Amuchai's face and had the power to literally crush people to death. This was no longer entertainment but a massacre caused by one man. Insane. Even the host was mesmerized. It was too shocking. Chen Youan sliced the barrier with his sword. Slash. With 2 slashes, the barrier cracked, and an opening like a door's entrance was created. The barrier broke? The host couldn't hide his shock. The barrier which an A-class entity couldn't destroy had been taken down. Chen Yuan left the barrier and grabbed the Ryan/wheel, which was hanging next to the host. Any more complaints? At Chen Yuan's words, the host nodded his head. Everyone just watched the scene without saying a word. No one objected to it. Alright, let's take a short break of 15 minutes. The host decided that continuing the auction would be difficult with the current atmosphere. Meanwhile, in the observation room, Jay's face, which was staring through the window, was visibly pale. Is he a monster? I, who was next to him, nodded. He too was equally shocked at this situation that went against their expectations. What are we going to do now? The entertainment game failed, and in the event of this occurring, the MS group was ready to gather the stronger fighters to achieve their goals. Before that, Chai Muntak looked at Jay, thinking of changing his orders. He planned on dealing with Chen Yuan and then using Jay as a scapegoat. Chai Muntak thought I drifted. That has to be dealt with first. Jay was startled and turned his head to the side. He, too, wasn't an ordinary person. There was no way he couldn't sense that subtle energy radiating from Chai Muntak. Ta-tak. Moving back, Jay asked. What are you trying to do? Chai Muntak wiggled his fingers and said. Since the leader already knows, shouldn't someone just take the fall? And you want that someone to be me? Chai Muntak's fingers were dyed with a glowing red energy. Jay, who knew his abilities, stepped towards the ground. Where? Chai Muntak tried to catch Jay. Grr. Yuk. However, in an instant, the floor was pierced and Chai Muntak fell into the lower floor. Jay had the ability to corrode everything he touched. Looking at the aftermath, he mumbled. I was almost done. I always knew that you would stab me in the back one day. Jay realized that he had to leave the scene right away. As he ran towards the entrance of the observation room, however, he heard a bang on the outside that kept getting closer. Is he coming up already? Bang. Quack. The door next to the room shattered and someone's head peeked out. Quack. This person is? There was a man near the door who was bleeding. It was Chai Muntak's escort, who was guarding the entrance of the room. Surprised, Jay took a step back and opened the door only to be greeted by someone unexpected. He then realized who it was. Chun Musong, Vice Chairman? Chen Yuan had appeared in the observation room. After the match, Jay thought Chen Yuan had returned to his seat, but he was actually making his way to the observation room. Chen Yuan stretched out his hand to Jay, who was trying to run away. Whoa! Yuk! His body was lifted up and dragged towards Chen Yuan, who caught him by the neck. Quack! Baldy! Are you the one in charge of this place? Jay couldn't hide his shock at these words. The guy in charge of this auction happened to be on the floor below the room they were in. Chapter 157. Auction House on Board. Part 4. Jay, the bald man who was caught by the neck, couldn't hide his shock. Of course, Chai Muntak had given him orders to kill Chen Yuan, so he tried to instigate the fight through the auction host, but he didn't try to do anything else. Cough. I'll let go of. If you are left in charge of this auction, what position do you have in MS Group? Position? He was one of the 10 high-ranking officials, or executives. At Chen Yuan's words, Jay saw that this man was targeting the high-ranking people in MS Group. Isn't it dangerous for me to reveal my identity, then? This was a bad situation. In the group, the person he was supposed to work along with had abandoned him and was ready to kill him, and now if he let this monster know of his position, he would die. I need to run away. Jay, who was determined to run, revealed his ability, which corroded anything it came in contact with. Since Chen Yuan was holding his neck, He could use his ability perfectly. Woon. WH, at? Chen Yowon's hand, which should have been corroded, was intact. Of course, they weren't entirely fine, but Chen Yowon already normally protected his body with energy and sensed that Jay was trying to do something to him. You're up to something useless. Quack, W8. Chen Yowon slammed the man to the floor. Bang! The floor cracked. Ack! Jay's face had turned red and swollen, as if his veins were about to burst. Although he was talented, he never trained his body for such powerful attacks. In a way, it felt like he was going to die. So weak. Chen Yowon was beyond puzzled at the sight of this high-ranking executive who was way too weak. Once he thought about it, he realized that the people in charge of the secret MS hideouts weren't very strong either. Well then, shouldn't you start opening your mouth? Chen Yowon was planning on using the ghost ability to read Jay's mind, but he surrendered. Quack. I surrender. I'll tell you everything you want, so let me live. What? A quick surrender. Jay had a great sense of survival. Meanwhile, Chai Muntak, who had fallen to the floor due to Jay's corrosion ability, came to his senses. As he also had a fighting ability that he could use, but he didn't train his body, causing him to get a concussion when he fell. Quack, that Joe Hoagie. Jay's real name was Joe Hoagie, and Chai Muntak hadn't expected the baldy to use his ability in such a way. How long was I out for? Although it was only for a brief moment, the pain in his head made him check the time to figure out how much time he had lost. He took out his phone and turned on the CCTV video, watching the room to which Jay had fled. He could see Jay being nailed down and Chen Yowon in front of him. Chai Muntak realized it wouldn't be possible to return to that room now. Chen Musong moved first? This was unexpected. He double-tapped on the earphone on his left ear. Chio Ryong. Can you hear me? He spoke it almost like a whisper. After a short moment, someone answered. Yes, senior researcher. Code Red. Code Red. Code Red signaled that the worst outcome was happening. Are you stopping the auction now? At Chio Ryang's question, Chai Muntak faced trouble. The best, safest answer was to stop the auction and escape with all the items, but if they did that, they would lose the interest and support from the VIP customers. If that happens, the head or even the entire table will hold me accountable. He would be killed even if he tried to run away. Once the MS group put its mind to it, it could find anyone. What do I do? Something flashed through his mind. There was a chance he could take advantage of the situation naturally. I have to move. It would, at least, help avoid losing the VIPs. Chio Ryong. Bring the escorts out right now and put the 4th gen and 5th gen prototypes on the podium. Huh? They're supposed to be shown at the end of the auction. Now isn't the time for questions. Chai Muntak decided to adopt an all-or-nothing approach for the current predicament. Since Chen Musong was running rampant, the only solution was to stop the auction. Alright. Chai Muntak gave the orders and took a silver mask out of his sleeve. Wearing that mask, he hurried down to the first floor of the dome. In the dome's observation room, Joe Hoagie, with a shaking body that was trembling due to his broken spine, explained the situation to Chen Yowon. I was abandoned by the group. Please believe me. Joe Hoagie figured that, even if he were to escape with his life, he would die in the hands of the MS group, so clinging to Chen Yowon was his only hope. Chen Yowon looked at him. His eyes shone with a will to live, as he didn't seem to be lying. Please save me. From what Chen Yowon was told, Joe Hoagie moved against MS Group's order and was cut off. However, Joe Hoagie said that the person in charge of the auction house was Another one of his colleagues who was trying to pin all of the trouble on him. He's worth using. If he could use this man, he would be able to enter the MS group from the inside. There are 2 more executives besides you? Why yes. Where are these 2? E is bound to arrive soon, and the man in charge is I, or Chai Muntak, who fell down. Joe Hoagie pointed to the hole in the floor. Chun Yo-won approached the floor and looked down. There's no one there. Ugh, he'll probably come up to kill me. Chai Muntak had manipulated the auction and tried to use Joe Hoagie as a scapegoat, so Joe Hoagie thought Chai Muntak would for sure try to come up to kill him. Are you sure? Yes. Chun Yo-won couldn't feel any energy moving towards this room. That was when Joe Hoagie looked out of the window. No. Chai Muntak, that bastard. What? Chai Muntak is over there. The place where Joe Hoagie pointed out the window was the dome. There was a man standing on the podium wearing a silver mask, Chai Muntak. All of the guests were all looking at him. Nice to meet you. My name is I, and I am in charge of this auction house. It seems like it's the first time our guests have faced such a situation. The appearance of a high-ranking MS Group executive who oversaw the auction house in secrecy behind the scenes was enough to attract their attention. What is he doing? Joe Hoagie couldn't answer Chun Yo-won's question. A high-ranking executive wouldn't appear in public unless it was really special, so Chai Muntak had to be up to something. I don't know. You really don't. Chun Yo-won looked at him with annoyed eyes. Even if he was an executive in charge of an auction house, this man knew nothing. But what is that bastard doing out there? There was no way that Chai Muntak was unaware that someone broke into the room, as it alone had 6 CCTV cameras inside. Did that Chai Muntak bastard see? Joe Hoagie frowned as he figured out Chai Muntak's intentions. There were influential people from all over the world at the auction, and it seemed that Chai Muntak appeared suddenly to prevent Chun Yo-won from harming him by taking the cover of the VIPs. That bastard. He's outsmarted me. Joe Hoagie grinded his teeth. In order to survive, he ended up begging this man, but that one was playing tricks. Wing. At that moment, the center of the platform opened and something rose up, surrounded by glass protectors. The spectacle was labeled 4th generation, and a total of 24 men and women of various nationalities and ages were on the platform in restraints. Oh. 4th gen. The VIPs all seemed excited at the sight, as they were attending this place mainly for the auction of these humans. The humans in the glass protectors were the 4th gen combat weapons, created through various genetic modifications. Did they make those? Chun Yo-won clicked his tongue when looking at those humans. He had seen the genetically engineered humans in the VIP room of Black Athena, and never thought he'd see them again after that. Chai Muntak opened his mouth again. This isn't the end. What you have been waiting for. We are here to show that to you today. Snap. When Chai Muntak snapped his fingers, the floor cracked and something came up with smoke. As if revealing a new product, the new arrival was unveiled with glass protectors that had rose gold designs, giving it an ornate appearance. Unlike the previous ones, this human had its face covered, and in the center, 5th generation was written in red letters. Whoa! Clap! Clap! People stood up and began to clap at the 5th gen modified human. The officials of each nation's national defense wanted these, and in fact only participated in MS Group's auctions, because of their reputation to produce the most effective combat weapons. Chai Muntak pressed a button on a wireless terminal. Click. The glass protector around the 4th gen humans was released, and the humans who previously had their eyes closed, opened their eyes and walked forward. I think the 4th gen is familiar to those who attended the last auction. The 4th gen all wore unique silver mechanical suits, with energy sources shining like LED lights in the center of their suits. No. Chen Yuan's eyes lit up. The radiating light in the suit centers wasn't just any energy. It was the energy of cores. Based on the levels of energy of each human, the 4th gen were equipped with B-class cores. The exact use of the cores was unknown, but it seemed like the energy source for the suit. Chai Muntak exclaimed in a loud voice. "Behold, the latest work of our group today." Clank. When Chai Muntak pressed the button again, the entrance of the 5th gen's gorgeous glass protector opened. A light was pointing at the podium, and as the entrance opened, a man with a golden suit, gray hair, no expression, and a long scar in the corner of his right eye, walked out. Step. Intense energy was emanating from his suit. Chen Yuan couldn't feel the energy when the 5th gen was caged, but once he was out, the energy was impossible to miss. No way. Is that an S-class core? The light from the core was unmistakably an S-class core. Most of the VIP guests who attended guessed that the 5th gen weapon used an A-class core, but this exceeded their expectations. Kahaku of Speed was surprised as well. A 4th gen itself is tough to fight without Sukuru, this must be a monster. The pure energy alone surpassed the warriors who were the strongest in their nations, making them wonder if A-class and S-class cores could be used as the strongest weapons without refining them. Have they established a technology to withstand an S-class core? If this knowledge was released to the world, chaos would definitely ensue. The next-gen human weapons of MS Group were still prototypes, but if they could be commercialized, all the countries would make huge investments. I want to see it. How much will it be? Everyone in the dome wanted to know how powerful the 5th gen was, as the reason that it was revealed here was to demonstrate its power. A middle-aged blonde, presumably American, woman spoke. "Please show us the demo." "C'est vrai. Nous voulons aussi voir." "Right. We want to see it too." People of national defense kept speaking. They wanted to see the 5th gen weapon in action. No need to rush. Even if you didn't ask, we were going to demonstrate it any. It was then. Clank. It was the sound of glass breaking, and someone entered and stood in the middle of the podium. By Vice Chairman of Yongchun? Chun Musong? It was Chen Yuan who had suddenly gone onto the podium. At his appearance, all the VIP guests expressed their sheer displeasure. "What the hell are you doing?" A woman from the US National Guard shouted at Chen Yuan. Even though this man was strong, she couldn't hold back her anger, but Chen Yuan ignored her and moved to the 5th gen human, saying, "Becky." The human weapon which the MS Group revealed as the 5th gen was none other than Becky, Chen Yuan's subordinate whom Chen Yuan had attended the auction to find. "Becky. It's me. Get yourself together." Despite Chen Yuan's words, Becky stared back with an expressionless face. Chai Muntak was smiling behind the mask. As expected, Chai Muntak was skeptical at first. The place Becky came from had a bottle containing the blood of the flame Qilin, and Chai Muntak received a report that Chen Yuan had brought a man with red hair with a similar background. MS Group had assumed that the human they found frozen had something to do with the demonic cult, and they were right. Originally, I was intending to use it as a negotiation card. However, he now had to change his plans. Chai Muntak spoke. "This is good. Guest Chen Musong has volunteered to help us with the demo." Chen Yuan looked at the man. "What are you planning?" Ignoring Chen Yuan's question, he spoke to the audience. "It is an honor to present to you, the 5th gen." Chai Muntak ordered while looking at Becky. "Neutralize the opponent in front of you." As soon as the words came out, the energy source in the middle of the golden suit emitted an ever stronger light and Becky rushed towards Chen Yuan. "This is a combat weapon we've concentrated all of our resources on. Can he deal with it?" It was a perfect weapon for winning a battle. and there was no way this man would recognize Chen Yuan. At that, Chen Yuan simply gave an order to Becky, who was coming at him. The Chen Ma of the Great Sky Demon Order orders you, Becky, on your knees. Chai Muntak smiled bitterly. There is no way that such an order will work. At that moment, something unbelievable happened. Thud. Becky, who was running towards Chen Yuan, suddenly fell to his knees. Even Chai Muntak couldn't hide his shock. What the hell just happened?